Jack, welcome back to the podcast. How have you been?
Mate, thanks for having me back. How many guests have you had on more than once?
Just one other. So, yeah, you're in an elite club.
Mate, I feel honored. I feel honored. We'll make it a semi-regular thing. I'll come back every 6 to 9 months until people get sick of me and they're commenting, bro, I will subscribe to your podcast if you just get this guy off.
I want to start with the big question. So here we go. Is honey and salt the future of pre-workouts?
Bro, so for anyone who doesn't follow me, I made a reel recently where it actually went viral. It got millions of views and I reposted it again the other day. And there's this trend that went around TikTok for ages where people were putting a tablespoon of honey on their hand and then a little bit of pink salt and having that and being oh, this is going to replace your pre-workout supplement. It's this natural pre-workout. And I was because anything, it's one of those things where it's partially true. If you have quick digesting carbohydrates, honey, which is just sugar basically, and some salt, which is going to replenish your sodium before you train, it'll help you get a better pump. But it's not a magical property of honey or pink Himalayan salt. You can have any combination of carbohydrates and sodium before you train. And the worst part was people going there and being oh, I'm going to bin off my pre-workout supplement and my coffee and stuff and have this. And I'm well, you're misunderstanding the key ingredient in all of those things is caffeine, which then just adds an extra level on top. So yeah, that was one of those things whereby I really tried to explain the potential benefit, but also the downside of it. But then you do it in 30 seconds because social media, and then you realize you missed a whole bunch of things and you just kind of wish you hadn't posted it in the first place. And then next minute it's got millions of views across mediums and you're like, damn, really? This is the one?
Yeah, that's the way it works.
This is the one. Cool. But no, it's not the future, man.
No,
definitely
not. So let's start off at the top. So obviously a lot of your clients are, we talk about body composition, so body fat, muscle mass. When it comes to weight gain and weight loss, is it as simple as calories in versus calories out?
Yeah. So on a mechanistic level, yes. The mechanism by which you will gain, well, technically it's more kind of the mechanism by which you're going to gain body fat or lose body fat, really. And then if you're resistance training, if you eat in a calorie surplus, which is more calories than your body burns in a day, you're more likely to then also accumulate lean mass alongside that, right? So if you took a completely sedentary individual, so let's say I just got you, man, and we were all right, you're going to not move for the next 8 weeks. You're going to sit in that chair right there. Yeah. No movement whatsoever. And we'll put you in a calorie deficit. We'll work out what it is that you're going to burn in a day. We'll put you in a deficit. You would lose weight, you'd lose body fat. You're not moving, so you would probably lose muscle as well with that. Well, you definitely lose muscle for 8 weeks. Whereas if we put you in a surplus, the inverse would happen, right? And the rate of loss and the rate of gain would change over time depending on what weight you are and whether you started moving less in your chair, blinking less and all that sort of stuff, or blinking more as you're eating more calories. But fundamentally, that is what is going to determine changes in body composition, is that net calorie balance. But then when you actually break down what can influence that calorie balance, that's where it becomes a lot more complicated. So you hear people say not all calories are created equal. And this is true. They're not. Your body is going to utilize different calories from different sources differently. But in essence, if you consume less calories than you burn in a day, you will lose body fat. And then obviously we have to go into pairing that with certain macro ratios to make sure you hold on to muscle mass and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, and you can hear how much I've got to kind of talk around the question a little bit to kind of answer it in a way whereby I don't just give a definitive answer. Because I think that's the problem with social media, is that everyone's camped in, it's just calories. Calories are all that matters. Or they're camped in, no, it's hormones and it's insulin. Calories don't matter at all. And it's guys, calories matter a lot. But guess what? so does being hormonally healthy and, not being insulin resistant as well. Like it all ties in together. So yeah, it's generally a lot more complicated when you break it all down, but
Yeah.
mechanistically we cannot deny the laws of thermodynamics. Those are a thing, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose people look at these like calorie calculators you can get online. There's hundreds, thousands, whatever. Like you can just
Yeah.
get onto one, but people forget that it's like a guideline. So there's
Yeah.
also that element of trial and error. Once you've got that number, it's a rough estimate. Try it, work it out. If you're losing weight, up it a bit or whatever your goals are, obviously.
Hmm.
But yeah, like you say, people just camp in on one side or the other, and someone can't be in the middle, sort of bridging the gap. So it's good to see that someone's trying.
Yeah, man. And that's the thing. Like any good trainer, any good coach will tell you that it's more complicated than just that. But like the average person doesn't really need to worry about all that sort of stuff really until they need to worry about it. Like,
Mm.
I look at a lot of my clients, and there's a couple of things that I want to circle back to that you just said there. But the first thing is like, I look at a lot of my clients and I get them tracking calories and they lose weight and they build muscle. And lo and behold, whoa, it works, sort of thing. Because these are all people who are fairly metabolically healthy. Like they don't have, the majority of them don't have hormonal deficiencies. The majority of them aren't heavily insulin resistant. These aren't things that we have to worry about. So it's generally a fairly streamlined process. It's not that complicated for these people to experience body composition change. But if you have somebody who is clinically obese, for example, and their hormones are all up the wazoo and they can barely move and all these sorts of things, it may be more complicated for them and they may need a bit more trial and error. And it may be that they need to actually get their gut functioning properly again. And even if you take someone, for example, who's a business owner, like let's take a really like high flying CEO, right? Stress is probably through the roof, man. Can I swear on your pod? I can't remember. I
Yeah, go
almost just
ahead.
swore.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
sweet. Like stress is almost through the fucking roof, man. It's so high. Like they're a boiling pot at this point because they're always on. For those people, it's not just the fact that they don't have huge amounts of hours in the day to train and exercise and all that sort of stuff. It's also the fact that, again, their digestion's probably cooked.
Mm.
Their sleep is probably terrible. They are probably not particularly healthy and they have other things that they have to address on top of just less calories, more protein, etc. So we have to look at other things on a case by case basis for people. And again, that's what a lot of people on social media miss is it's this big blanket recommendation of, we're probably going to come to it, but like the carnivore diet, right? It's this whole like, oh my God, I felt so amazing on the carnivore diet. It's like, yeah, of course you did. You stopped eating all this junk food and you stopped eating all the stuff that was making you feel really inflamed and making you feel really sick, but you just didn't want to tell everyone that that's what it was
Yeah.
because you didn't want to kind of recognize that. But you then eventually do need to start adding things back into your diet in order to continue to be healthy. Cool, you improved some health markers by not eating Krispy Kreme donuts for breakfast, by shedding 10 pounds, and by losing some body fat. Amazing. And then alongside that diet, you decided, well, if I'm going to go all in on my nutrition like this and give up everything, I might as well start doing high rocks, or I might as well start training 3 times a week as well. No shit, Sherlock. Your health improved. Cool, because your baseline was so bad. The bar was set so low. But then as you continue doing that diet, that's where you start to run more risks of being like,
Mm.
well, we're now not eating any fruit. We're not eating any vegetables. Our fiber is zero. Literally, all we're doing is having protein, butter, and salt. Like, these things have been used clinically to help people kind of quote unquote gut reset, but they're always short term solutions
Yeah.
to this kind of longer term problem. So, yeah, I think that's kind of the problem is that we're just seeing all these blanket suggestions given to everyone. And a lot of the time, these suggestions can work in the short term. Even calorie counting, man, like calorie counting is a fantastic way of keeping track of your nutrition and making sure that you are budgeting account like accurately during the week. But some people struggle with calorie counting. Some people have had eating disorders. Some people genuinely don't fathom how numbers work particularly well. They're more of kind of like a literary person,
Mm.
like everybody kind of has to find a system that works best for them, and yeah, there's no like just this is going to fix everything for everyone all the time. It's always that the truth is going to be somewhere in the middle, and you need to be taking bits and pieces from everything, like the good from all these places, because most of these things do have some good traits about them. Is it a good thing to be eating less processed food? Fuck yeah. Like, you shouldn't be eating 2 donuts and having a matcha grande latte with 4 pumps of caramel syrup for breakfast. Like, that's not breakfast
Yeah, for sure.
at all, you know? Yeah, so there's so many sort of things that people need to look at, so many avenues to go down, but it always just comes back to find a system that's going to work for you. And as you said, trial and error is going to be a big thing.
Yeah.
And real quickly, to go back to the calorie calculator things, yeah, they are only an estimate, and you also have to account for user error too. If you're somebody who's never tracked calories before, chances are you're going to suck at tracking calories. Unless you're a really like literal person who like obsesses over numbers and needs to be right and treats it as a game from day one, you're going to struggle initially. You have to learn the skill of tracking calories, just like you have to learn the skill of tracking progressive overload in the gym. You have to learn the skill of tracking your finances when you start working. You have to learn the skill of vacuuming your living room. Like,
Yeah, that's a really good
all,
point.
yeah. And you might have, like, it might be that 2,000 calories is perfect for you to maintain your weight, but you have a 30% margin of error. So you're eating 2,600 a day and you can't understand why you're gaining weight, but it's because someone online told you that you don't need to track olive oil. And so you've been using 400 calories worth of olive oil to cook all your food. And it's like, no, olive oil has a lot of calories, right? Or that you don't need to track veggies. And it's like, cool, green leafy stuff, you do not need to track. Potatoes, you need to track, so again, it's kind of like learning on the fly with that and not expecting to be perfect from the start and just kind of allowing yourself to get used to that skill and kind of learn how to accurately track.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that takes time.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So breaking down a bit deeper into the calories then. So our food's made up of macronutrients and micronutrients. Could you give us a brief overview of those and how they differ from each other?
Yeah, so obviously you've got the big one, protein, which everybody's mum thinks is a steroid. But protein is just found in food. And protein, in essence, is the building block of your muscles. It contains amino acids, which we need in order to grow new lean tissue. But it's also used in so many other functions in the body. So protein is key. You need protein. And each one of these macronutrients contains a certain amount of calories to the gram. So 1 gram of protein as a macronutrient, not as in taking a type of protein like chicken and cutting off a gram and weighing it. No, as in like 1 gram of the macronutrient value is going to be worth 4 calories. Carbohydrates. So people will have heard the word glucose, insulin, all that sort of stuff. Like, they're all big scary words, but it's like your body doesn't necessarily need carbohydrates, but it likes carbohydrates. And it especially really likes carbohydrates when you work out because they are the primary energy source used, especially in resistance training. And when you do a workout and you flex your bicep, you just done like 8 sets of bicep curls, you're feeling yourself. It's like 11 p.m. in the gym, nobody else is there. You're like, fuck it, I'm going to take advantage of the lighting. And you pull a big bicep flex and stuff. And your bicep feels like it's splitting out. It's like, oh my God, it feels massive. I've got this sick pump. Carbohydrates and the glycogen that you've got in your muscles are partially responsible for that because they pull fluid into the muscle. So our body loves protein. Protein helps us build muscle. It's fantastic. Our body loves carbs. We could live without carbohydrates. We could, but it would not be a life worth living, in my opinion. And also, they are the primary fuel source for weightlifting, which is always going to be so good if you're trying to improve your health and improve your body composition. And then fats essentially just keep you hormonally healthy. We need fats. People, again, they hear the word fat and they're like, it's not, you're not eating body fat. You're eating dietary fat. So thinking, salmon, omega-3s, all this sort of stuff was really good. Avocados, coconut, nuts, all these things that are all seen as like health foods. They're all foods that are really high in fat. So we need fats. And the only thing is that fats are over twice as calorically dense as protein. So protein and carbohydrates, 1 gram of the macronutrient value is 4 calories, and 1 gram of the fat macronutrient value is 9 calories. So it's a little higher. Technically, alcohol is kind of like the 4th macronutrient, and that is 7 calories per gram, I think, from memory. but we don't count that as kind of like a main macronutrient because alcohol is technically toxic to the body, and you probably don't want to be tracking that on a day-to-day basis, really.
Maybe you do.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
if life's not so good at the moment, but
Yeah.
I'd rather, there's phone numbers for that.
And the micronutrients side of things.
Mm. Yeah, so micronutrients are just like the simplest way to put it for people is vitamins and minerals. So like if you look at everybody's obsessed with at the moment on social media with whole foods and eating, plants and lean meats and all that sort of stuff. It's because they contain a lot of micronutrients. Micronutrients are not broken down into calories. That's the difference. So micronutrients are your vitamins and minerals. If you have too many of them, as you might know when you take a multivitamin supplement sometimes, if you're someone who eats really healthy, you then pee and your pee is like this kind of weird color and it sort of smells a little bit funky. That's because you're getting rid of the excess of micronutrients that you don't need. So you just pee these out when you have too much of them. So yeah, anything like vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin B12, all these things are micronutrients essentially.
So, as someone yourself who works with loads of people, general members of the public, who obviously some of them it's their first time ever sort of getting into training, into eating well, what are some of the main misconceptions that you come across in your own experience, people not understanding nutrition?
Oh God, where do I start? The biggest thing that I come across helping people with their body composition is that they think that you have to eat in a deficit forever. I think that's probably the biggest misconception because the last sort of 10 years or so, the fitness industry has done a really, really good job of helping people realize that in order to lose body fat, you need to be in a calorie deficit. But nobody ever talks about the exit strategy from a diet. And so I think this is where a lot of people fall down is that diets don't not work. Diets clearly work. We've seen that from the literature we've had. For 8 years, I've been a coach. Diets, when people successfully fucking do them, work. You lose body fat and you get the result. But the problem is, there's a lot of coaches out there who are really good at helping people lose weight. They get their before and after photo, and then the client thinks they're done and they leave. And the coach thinks, well, I got my $2,000 for the 6 months of coaching or whatever. I got my before and after photo. So now I've got 3 new ones through the door. I don't need to worry about you anymore because we got your result. You'll be fine. But they never actually teach them how to actually sustain the result and keep a hold of it long term. So I think the biggest misconception is that people, I guess it's not a misconception, but kind of like a lack of awareness around what it is that you need to do long term to actually sustain the fat loss result you get. Because I think people now are pretty cluey in terms of what they actually need to do in order to lose body fat. At least the people that I work with generally, like full disclosure, I don't really work with any beginners anymore because I don't think beginners should be getting an online coach. I think beginners should have somebody they can form a relationship with in person to help them feel better in the gym, help them feel more comfortable, and have that touch point a couple of times a week in person to soundboard things for 45 minutes. So if you're listening to this and you're new to your gym journey, find an in-person personal trainer for the first 6 months. It could be the best investment that you ever make. If you're somebody who's been training for a couple of years, you understand gym jargon and you understand how to read a program and you understand how to track calories, all that sort of stuff, then look for an online coach. So yeah, I think it's more of a lack of awareness than a misconception. I think misconceptions are, again, like there's supplement misconceptions, thinking things like creatine, for example, is a steroid, whereas creatine is found naturally in food. You can get creatine from salmon and red meat, chicken, all these sources. You just going to struggle to get enough of it from food. So we supplement to get more, and creatine is a fantastic supplement for muscle growth and also for cognitive benefit as well. Like any other supplement, don't get enough in the diet, take something to help bump it up. So it's a hard one to just kind of come up with misconceptions on the spot because I could give you like 1,000 of them.
Yeah, of course.
But ones that are like relevant to the conversation, I think it's more raising awareness on how to sustain your results long term and the fact that you don't actually need to be all in for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And like the idea of getting off of a diet at the end of it, and you see it so often where people go on these diets, they lose loads of weight, and then they get there and they just start putting it back on, and you end up almost back at where you started. And again, I
Mm.
suppose it's exactly what you're saying. It's down to that education, and like you say, that sort of cranking out results and then just going on to the next one that a lot of trainers unfortunately sort of do go through. So how can we educate more people? I suppose people like yourself, who have that reach and who can sort of spread that message of what happens at the end of the diet. What can we start to do to help people understand that a bit more?
So something that I do is I talk to my clients about this from day one. So I prefer not. The reason why I work with people for a minimum of 12 weeks is that I prefer not to take somebody on, diet them, and then get rid of them. I would rather somebody came to me, wanting to work with me for a year
Mm.
and like actually dedicating that time. Because I've had so many business mentors who've sat there and been like, Jack, your prices up. Like, put your prices through the roof. You should be charging double what you do for 12 weeks, make it high ticket, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, cool, I hear you, but I don't want my clients for 12 weeks. I want my clients for 12 months.
Mm.
And not everybody can afford to pay a fuck ton of money for 12 months of coaching. So for me, I think I undervalue myself because of the results I can get people. But the reason that I do that is because I want to kind of split people's journey into phases. I want to kind of, if they need it, prepare them for the fat loss phase. So we start looking at the habits that they're going to need. We start trying to tailor their day-to-day routine so they'll have success. Maybe we start tracking calories, but we don't jump into a deficit yet. We eat at maintenance, which is the amount of calories that you need to hold the body composition you're at, so that they can get used to having regular meal times. They can get used to building their meals around a protein source. They can get used to seeing what foods are really calorie dense and what foods are really calorie sparse for the amount of volume that you can have. And we start tailoring these behaviors. Maybe it's only 2 weeks, maybe it's 4 weeks, depends how quick someone learns, depends what their experience is. But we have this kind of pre-diet phase, and then we diet and we do the fat loss phase for however long it takes. And personally, I like to be a little more aggressive with the fat loss phase. That's not to say we go irresponsible. It just means where a lot of coaches might say to someone, okay, we'll do a 20% deficit. I'll be like, do you reckon you can deal with a 25%? Do you reckon we could do that and maybe get it done 4 weeks earlier if you're adherent, if you're consistent? And again, we're judging this based off how somebody's structuring their days now. So how they're being able to find routines that work for them, to be able to fit gym in seamlessly, to be able to get their step count up and be able to move more on a day-to-day basis, fit in cardio if they feel they need it or they want it, and be able to, again, structure their eating in a way whereby the times in the day where they're really hungry and they're craving food, we have them eating. And we don't have them feeling like they're completely depriving themselves. They're just showing some restraint rather than constantly being restricted. And then once we hit the end of the diet, we start talking about goals moving forward. We start talking about, okay, well, over the last 20 weeks that we dieted, what lifts did you enjoy? What exercises did you really have a good time doing? Because let's build a program whereby you get really strong on those exercises. Oh, you love deadlifting and you felt like doing your first ever pull up was a real badass experience? Amazing. Over the next 3 months, let's focus on bringing your calories up to maintenance so that you know where you need to sit in order to maintain the new body composition you've got. And let's make the focus in the gym and with your exercise and your training on getting to 5 pull-ups now. And let's increase that deadlift from 100 kilos to 120 kilos. And oh, you said now that you're lighter, running and stuff feels a lot nicer. It's a lot easier on your joints. Cool. Well, you said there's a fun run every Sunday that you've really wanted to go to. Let's start building up your cardio capacity so that you can, go and join in that fun run and you can go with your mate who said that it'd be a good time. So that's what we look at, is kind of breaking their year down into these kind of sections and phases and looking at things moving forward, because you'd be so surprised how well you can maintain a result without really thinking about maintaining a result if you set your life up in that way. I get a lot of messages at the moment because I'm probably the leanest that I've been in a long time. And people are like, oh my God, you've maintained this now for like 7 months. What's going on? And I'm like, well, I just eat the same things every day. Unless I go out for dinner with friends or whatever, then I make an allowance for that. But I'm not doing that every night. I'm not getting takeaway every night. I'm not Uber Eatsing every night. I control what I eat 80, 90% of the time. I have a consistent step count. I train. I'm pretty, my routine is built around being healthy,
Yeah.
but I also still eat ice cream,
Yeah. And you've learned what works for you as well. So
Exactly. And obviously we talked last time I was on the pod, like I had a pretty gnarly eating disorder. Like, I've been to the bottom. I've been to pretty shit places with this stuff. Like,
yeah.
so I know that it is possible to find things that work for you and to be able to do that for the long term if you work at it and you're willing to experiment a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. I think that education from the start is such a big thing, and it makes me think of when I was doing some PT work as well. I didn't touch on the nutrition as much because I wasn't doing it for as long, but even just in the gym stuff, you tell them why they're doing the exercise, not just okay, do three sets of 10 reps of this. It's like, okay, this will do this for you. This will allow you to do this, and this is why we're doing it. Because, like you say, once you're not there anymore, they still need to understand why they're doing what they're doing and where to go with it. So I think that's really important, and I think that is the bit that a lot of trainers do miss. They're just looking at that window where they're with them and not beyond it, unfortunately. So let's look at supplements. You spoke there about creatine briefly, the god tier, some might say. How can supplements benefit us alongside our food?
So the main thing that I look at supplements as is, without giving that jackass answer of being like, well, they're supplementary to your diet, is like everybody likes certain foods, right? We all have our preferences. We all have different things that we enjoy eating. And it might just be that the way that you tailor your diet is overall pretty healthy, but you might be a little bit deficient in certain things. So then you're just supplementing whatever that is in order to get more of it. Or if you look at, like, obviously you're in the UK, so vitamin D is at a premium for like 9 months of the year, right?
Absolutely.
Like, and vitamin D is very, very important in men, especially for like men's reproductive health, right? So we want to be getting vitamin D. So if you live in somewhere that's, kind of darker, colder, rainier a lot of the year, you might consider taking a vitamin D supplement. Now, I don't tell my clients what supplements they should and shouldn't take, because here in Australia, you need to be a registered dietitian in order to do that. All I do is essentially give my clients this kind of guide as to like the main supplements that they might see when they walk into a chemist and the benefits that they could maybe get from those supplements. And then realistically, if you are somebody who's considering supplementing with something, you probably should refer that to your GP. You should go to your GP and say, hey, I really struggle at the moment with energy and it's really dark and it's rainy, and I think maybe I should start supplementing with vitamin D. What do you think? And a lot of the time GPs will be like, sure. Because realistically, anything that you get in a chemist is, it's probably not going to be that harmful for you, touch wood. So yeah, when it comes to supplements, you just want them to supplement what is missing from your diet effectively. Or if you look at like a protein supplement, for example, it might just be that you're being asked to eat so much protein that you struggle to get that from whole foods. So taking a whey protein supplement or a pea protein supplement, if you're vegan, allows you to get an extra 30 grams of protein in your day, which bumps your total up to somewhere nearer where you need to be, right? But my recommendation is always do your research, speak to a GP if you feel you need to, or a dietitian, and actually get your supplement regime mapped out for you so that it makes sense.
Yeah.
I love getting my blood work done. I obsess over it. I think it's really like interesting to see how different changes to my routine and to my food and to my training influence my blood work. So for me, when it comes to my supplementation, like I get my blood work done every 6 months or so. And every time I'm there, I speak to my doctor and I'm like, what am I deficient in? What do you feel like I could be having more of, sort of thing? The answer very rarely changes, to be honest with you. But like, yeah, it's just, to me, it's interesting to know. And when I'm doing it that way, I'm actually making sure that I'm not just paying a shit ton of money for all these pills and potions and stuff that I don't need. Because that's the other thing too, right? It's like BCAAs. They went around for years. But you ever seen that meme of the guy swimming in the pool and he's pouring a bottle of water on his head? And it's like, what are you doing, brother? Like, yeah, he's in a pool. Like, he's an Olympic swimmer. He's in a pool. And he's got a bottle of water and he's pouring it on his head. And it's like, just dunk your head under, brother. Like, you've got enough water there in the pool. And that's the equivalent of taking BCAAs when you're eating enough high quality protein sources. So when it comes to supplements, a lot of them are expensive wastes of money. I will say that greens powders are probably the worst offender for that, if anyone's wondering.
Okay.
There's obviously some pretty big greens powder brands out there that kind of come
There
up on
goes
a
my
lot of other
future AG1
podcasts.
sponsorship.
I wasn't going to do it to you, mate. I wasn't.
No, there you go. Yeah, go on.
But again, like if you're eating enough veggies, you're eating enough fruits and all that sort of stuff, then greens powders, like the dosing in these supplements is not very high. You know, it's like I saw a YouTube video recently from a creator that we're both very familiar with, and he did a video on creatine gummies. And again, same sort of thing. Once you actually extrapolate the gummy down, the amount of creatine in the gummies is so much less than what you would be getting if you were to just take the powder.
Yeah.
And the powder's going to have quicker absorption anyway. So it's probably going to be the better option. And you could take the powder and you could mix it with some protein and you could put it in some water and you could just scull it down. Scull is Australian for like chug. And you get it straight in. So yeah, when it comes to supplements, do your research, look into them, and don't just buy things because influencers are telling you to buy them. Actually look into why it is that you might need them. I think that's the most politically correct way I could answer that question.
Yeah, 100%. I think it is a business at the end of the day. A lot of these companies are just trying to sell things, so they'll fix the studies, or they'll word it in a way that makes it sound a lot better than it is. But like you say, getting blood work done, understanding your own body and your own needs, and it is that cliche of they are a supplement to your diet. So what are you missing from your diet? Can you get that from food? If not, okay, what supplements will help this? And probably when you break it down, there's only a few that would actually offer anything like real and anything that valuable. And just on the blood work stuff, I did an episode very recently with a guy who's a medical director at a low testosterone and like TRT clinic. So that was a really interesting episode for me to understand the effects that those vitamins and minerals and stuff have on that as well. So their idea is that they don't just go, you've got low testosterone, let's get you on TRT. Almost against their business in a way. They say, we don't want to put you on that. Let's look at all of those other things. Okay, you're low in vitamin D, B12, whatever, get on those. And so, yeah, it was a really interesting thing to see how they link in and then the effects it has down the line.
Yeah. Well, actually, just to hold on that for a second, I actually did a little experiment on myself last year because, as I said, I like to get my bloods done regularly. I've never had low test. My testosterone's always come back pretty good. Like I've been kind of in the, I guess, not like the upper ranges, but like I've been pretty good. I've been pretty healthy. You know, I've not been waking up limp. Let's put it that way, unless I'm really, really lean. But last year I was just interested. I was like, you obviously see it's a big thing on social media, all these like stupid freaking 18 to 21-year-old guys taking their shirts off, going into supermarkets, talking about everything killing your testosterone and stuff, right? So I was like, I'm going to ask for a blood panel to get my test done, and then I'm going to go back again in 6 months and I'm going to see what it is, right? And my total test, here in Australia, like you could do the total test score. I was like, sweet, that's all I need. I think it was like 22 or something out of 30 on the score. So I was like, cool. 6 months, I basically decided I'm going to take a supplement regime that I've kind of concocted from Googling all this stuff as to what I might need. I'm going to really focus on sleep. I'm going to dial in my diet. I'm going to lean out a little bit because I wasn't overweight or anything. Like I'm a fitness coach, but I was like, I'm probably a little heavier than I'd like to be. Like I'm not as fit as I'd like to be. Started doing a bit more cardio. Went back in 6 months and my test was up to almost 27. So it was like 26.9. And I was like, cool, great. So it's really not that complicated if you're not a low test individual. And I think, you know, obviously if you are, like if you're experiencing those symptoms, which people probably heard on that podcast, like 100% go and get clinical intervention. Like it can absolutely change your life. If you're someone who suffers with low test, to get onto TRT. I've got a few friends who have done it and they swear by it. But if you're just a guy who wants to optimize your testosterone levels, you're pretty healthy, you're in a good spot, just know that it's a lot simpler than you think it is. Like, you know, just cut the alcohol down, up the sleep, make sure that your food quality is good and you're eating regular meal times, pay attention to your blood pressure and your resting heart rate, and actually do some fucking cardio. You know, all these things matter. And I won't go into the supplement routine just because I'm not a dietitian, but
Yeah.
it was a very simple 4 supplement routine. It was not like 20,000 freaking things that you get online.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, just touching on that, the other thing that really amazed me, I can't go on about it too much because it's taking our time, but the effects that then has on like mental health and the other side, that so if you are low testosterone or any that sort of disorder, it can really affect mental health. And I think we always look at mental health as this, how do we treat the mind? What therapy can we do? What can we talk about? But actually, why don't we get your blood work done and see if there's an underlying cause for it as well? And that was just
100%,
something
man.
that I want to keep throwing out there because I think it's a really important point and something that I took away from that. So something else that we can call a supplement, I suppose, and probably the most widely used across the world, caffeine.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
some people obviously have a phenomenal amount of it, coffee all day long. Where do we stand with that? How should we be using it, and how maybe are we abusing it?
Well, where we're abusing it is that people are literally using it as a fuel source to run through the day. Like, so one of the big things that I did when I did this testosterone experiment was that I actually cut my caffeine intake right down. And this was partially to do with the experiment, but it was also partially to do with mental health, as you talked about. So I'm somebody who's very open. I suffer from really bad anxiety. So if I overdo my caffeine intake, I start getting shaky, I start getting shivery, and I need to lie down for a little bit. So for me, as a personal trainer, I built up a really high tolerance to caffeine over the years. There were days whereby I would have an espresso before I went to work. I would start my sessions at like 5 a.m. I'd then have a coffee at 8. I'd have a coffee at 11. I'd have a pre-workout at 1 or 2. I'd have another coffee at 4. Like these were all double, triple shot coffees as well. So my caffeine intake was well above the healthy human threshold, which I believe is something like 400 milligrams a day is like the average, or something that you shouldn't go over. At least from memory, it was something like that. So I was well above that. And I recently, I'd been doing a lot better for a couple of years, but recently I'd noticed that I was having a lot more caffeine again because my sleep hadn't been great. About 7 months ago, I went through a breakup of a long-term relationship. We'd been together for over 4 years. And so like my sleep wasn't great. My anxiety was really high. And I noticed I was having too much caffeine, essentially. I was trying to get through the day buzzed. So I really cut my caffeine down, and it made a huge difference. I'd have one coffee in the morning. 3 or 4 days a week, it would be from my coffee machine, and the other 3 days a week, I would go to a local cafe and get a coffee that I would sit and work with. I just tried to kind of keep my caffeine intake fairly low, fairly steady, and it really helped bring a lot of that anxiety down and kind of level me out again. And it also kind of started to take away that tolerance to caffeine as well. So I actually found that when I was having caffeine, I was a lot more productive again. I was having a double shot coffee in the morning and zooming through like 3 hours of work. I was like, whoa, like haven't been able to do this in years. And so I think that's where people are abusing caffeine, is they're not allowing it to have the performance enhancing benefits that it can have, either on training or on their day-to-day life. It can be a real productivity hack, but if you're relying on it constantly and you're using it constantly throughout the day, having multiple energy drinks, multiple coffees, then Coca-Cola or Pepsi on top that's got caffeine in it that people forget about, and stuff, it's like, yeah, you're just basically building up this massive tolerance to it and not really getting any of the benefits. And the benefits are, increased arousal. And when we say arousal, people always think like sexual arousal. No, like arousal to like work and to training and all that sort of stuff. Heightened focus and all that sort of stuff. And when it comes to training and improving that training arousal, there's been tons of studies done that if you have somewhere between 2 to 4 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. So for me, I'm about an 86, 87 kilogram individual. For me, somewhere around 170 milligrams, upwards of about 300 to 340 milligrams. Would not recommend that to anyone, though, because that is a lot. It will have performance enhancing benefits. And it actually can reduce your what's the best way to word this? Kind of like it improves your pain tolerance, basically. So you can push harder and you can push through where you previously might not have done. So it's a really effective supplement. It's been highly, highly studied. The only issue is that you do not want to be having too much of it because you don't want to build up that tolerance, but you also do not want to have too much of it because at the end of the day, caffeine increases your heart rate, and it can make you very paranoid. It can make you very anxious. And if you have too much of it, you may risk doing something kind of irreversible to your heart as well. So you need to be very, very careful. In terms of recommendations for caffeine, I don't have any because everybody's different and it's really based on your tolerance, your body weight, all that sort of stuff. The only recommendation I can give is, that recommendation of if you're going to use caffeine as a performance enhancer before you train, you're going to try and take advantage of that increased arousal, that increased ability to like train for a longer period, that duration of work, and that improved pain tolerance and that kind of improved perception of effort, somewhere between kind of 2 to 4 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. I prefer 2 to 3 milligrams to be safe, is probably going to be your best bet. And the only other thing I would say as well is to remember that caffeine roughly has a half-life of about 5 hours, meaning that it will not half the amount that's in your system until it's been in your system for 5 hours, and then will clear somewhere between 8 to 10 hours afterwards. So if you're somebody who sleeps at 9 p.m., even if you think, I'm having this pre-workout supplement at midday, it's not going to affect my sleep, it still could very much impact your sleep at 9 p.m. because there will still be some caffeine in your system. So again, it depends on your tolerance as to whether that's going to be a good idea, a bad idea, or a really bad idea.
Yeah, that's a good reminder for people, that half-life, because you have people who have caffeine like in the evening and they're like, yeah, but I can still get to sleep. It's like, you can get to sleep, but the quality of your sleep is not going to be the same. It's going to be detrimental to it.
It's going to be impacted.
Yeah, and also the other thing is about, you're saying, obviously building up that tolerance over time. Some of the places here now do, you can pay like a monthly fee and get up to 5 coffees a day or something, and it's just like, there's people probably doing that. And the problem is you're building up your baseline, aren't you? So to get to just a baseline level of getting through the day, you have to have a coffee straight away. Then you have to have another one on your way to work. And you hear people say it like, I can't function without a coffee. I'm like, that is a worrying place to be.
Well, caffeine's a drug, man. That's what people forget, is that, you can have caffeine supplements, but it's still a drug. And, people do become reliant on it. They do become, I don't know, like I'm yet to meet somebody who's like addicted to caffeine, for example. Like if you took coffee away from them, they're probably not going to be just throwing down caffeine pills and stuff like that, right? It's the whole sugar addiction thing, right? It's like it's probably less likely, but there probably are people out there who have this level of addiction to caffeine. So you have to be very careful with it. Like even the other day, there's a great place near me. You might have seen it on my Instagram stories, like these specialty coffees. And it's like cold brew coffee with this like cream thing on top and like some maple in it. It's amazing, bro. It's so good.
It's good.
And I had one the other day and I didn't realize how much caffeine cold brew actually has in it. And it can be anywhere between 160 and 200 milligrams of caffeine, which is a lot. That's like more than it's in a Monster Energy drink. And I was like, like it's not that big. Like it's going to be like 100 to 120 milligrams. That's fine. So I had 2 of them within an hour. And there's me like an hour later sitting out on my balcony having to like just drink water and try and eat some oats to like soak up the acidity in my stomach.
Just
and I was sitting there like, oh my God. It was so bad, bro. And it was like that for a good 3 hours afterwards because I was so buzzed until that sort of like half-life started to kick in. And I'm lucky I process caffeine quite quickly. Like it goes through me very quickly. You can always tell how quickly you get rid of it, guys, if you go to the bathroom after you've had coffee, because you'll be able to smell it in your urine as you pass it. And it's like, I'm quite lucky that it sort of goes through me quite quickly. But yeah, dude, that was not a good place to be on a Sunday morning.
This is how we learn though, isn't it?
Exactly.
So looking at some of the sort of diets that sort of you hear about, and you sort of mentioned carnivore earlier, there's these sort of diets that you could call them fads, I suppose, but you hear them use intermittent fasting, keto, paleo, low carb, all these sort of things get thrown about. What are your views on those? Are they any of them beneficial, or do they sort of muddy the water and sort of make it harder for people to work out what they should actually be doing?
So again, it comes down to why you're doing this diet plan. Are you doing it because your favorite influencer told you it might be a good idea and sold you a cookbook for $199? Or are you doing it because you genuinely think this is the best way that you can get there and it actually works for you? Like you can implement it into your lifestyle seamlessly and still have social connection and still be able to eat out and still be able to do all these things. When it comes to things like carnivore and keto and all these like super hyper restrictive diet models, I think they do more harm than good overall. I understand where they come from. I understand that there are uses in clinical settings for all of these diets. That's where a lot of them come from. I think the ketogenic diet was a way to combat epilepsy. And I have heard like the carnivore diet, for example, has been used to help with bipolar disorder. So there are definitely clinical ways to use these, but in terms of using them as a way to control calories and lose weight, just for the average person, it's muddy waters, man.
Yeah.
Like it can work for people if they're able to use it long term and stuff. But again, I'm like, the more you continually cut out food groups, the more you continually cut out all these things. Like I saw a video the other day of this woman who she'd been carnivore now for like 4 or 5 years. And to run an experiment, quote unquote, she reintroduced a bunch of foods and she ate them and immediately felt sick. Her digestion was off. She felt horrible, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, because you didn't eat those foods for 5 years. It's nothing to do with the food itself. It's how your gut microbiome has now developed to only want to digest protein and butter and all these weird carnivore snacks that you guys make. Like, and that's the thing. It's like your body will adapt to whatever you give it. You can become fat adapted. As I said, you don't necessarily need carbohydrates to live. You can live in ketogenesis, but like, yeah. I just don't think it's the best way to be for most people who don't require these things. I think when you look at like whole food diet and trying to eat more whole foods, I 100% agree with that. I do say to a lot of my clients, like, try to make 90% of what you eat, especially if you're trying to lose fat, whole foods. Make it non-processed. And listen, processed can be a point of view, it can be a spectrum, but like, try to make most of what you eat lean meats, fruit, veggies, whole grains, all that sort of stuff that we know is good for you. Try to balance protein and fiber. When it comes to intermittent fasting, it's interesting you bring that one up because to me, that's not a fad diet. That's just skipping breakfast. It's just eating later on in the day, which again can work. Time restricted feeding. If you're somebody who's got a lot of willpower or you function on like routine, you're a really structured individual, this time restricted feeding window can be a cheat code for you because you just go, okay, well, I'm going to eat between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. or I'm going to eat between 1 p.m. and 9 p.m. or like, people with very busy work schedules tend to work really well on this. People who don't like eating in the morning tend to do really well on this. But it's when people start attaching all these other benefits like autophagy and all this sort of stuff. It's like, no, it's just skipping breakfast, man. Like it's literally just eating later on in the day. You fast every day that you are alive, regardless of who you are. Because if you fall asleep at 9 p.m. and you eat breakfast at 8 a.m., oh my God, you did an 11-hour fast. Holy shit, you're only 3 hours off intermittent fasting, bro. Like, look at you health guru. No, you just had your last meal at like fucking 9 p.m., went to bed at 11 and woke up at 7. Like, you gotta, it's like, this is what people miss. Like, breakfast is literally called breakfast because you break your fast.
That's it. I think as well with it is to remember it's a way of just, it's controlling your calories essentially. It sort of loops back to what we started at the start.
Yeah.
You're essentially, because you're limiting that window of where you eat, it makes it so much harder for you to overeat in that short space of time. So you're almost just tricking yourself into eating less potentially.
Depending on the person though, some people will feel pressure to consume a higher amount of calories in that shortened window because they know they now can't eat after that. Like they've got a rule, they're not allowed to eat. So they kind of go into this like survival mode towards the end of it and they put this pressure on themselves. And it can work inversely for some people. And again, this is the thing. It's N of one. It's what does anecdotally work for you? Some people really like to leave 5 hours between meals. I become a real hangry prick if I do that. So I try to eat every 3 hours or so during the day, especially when my calories are higher, not because there's magical metabolic benefits or anything like that, simply just because I don't want everybody around me to want to punch me in the face because I'm being a moody prick. You know what I mean? So yeah, it is all about personal experience at the end of the day. And kind of if I had to sum up like all of these diets, as you said, they're just ways of controlling your calorie intake and mitigating eating higher calorie foods generally.
Yeah.
Because again, carnivore, there's only so much meat and butter you can have, man. Keto, same thing. You know, if you're eating a whole food diet, it's a lot harder for you to overeat on like chicken breast, grains, and salad than it is to overeat on McDonald's, you know, because again, these foods aren't as calorie dense. But the problem is people think that calories don't matter because of these diet plans. But it's like, well, if you eat 5,000 calories on carnivore a day, you will gain weight, you will gain body fat. You know, like, yes, the net calories will be lower because protein has a higher thermic effect of food. So, meaning that if you eat 1,000 calories of protein, you will only store a lower amount of those calories than you would if you ate 1,000 calories of fat or 1,000 calories of carbohydrates, because your body utilizes some of those calories to break down the protein and utilize it for different processes in the body. But yeah, it is literally all just ways of mitigating being in a calorie surplus at the end of the day and not pushing your calories over the edge.
For people out there who might be traveling lots or working long hours and maybe it's sort of throwing their routine out, how can they still ensure that they're eating as well as they want to? Have you got any tips for people doing that?
Yeah, 100% preparation. So preparation is the absolute key here. So what we want to look at, right, is we're gonna list the priorities of what we need. Okay, so and I'll do this for anyone, regardless of what situation they're in. But even if you're a busy CEO or you're traveling to different cities all the time and all that sort of stuff, what do we know that we need to do in order to keep our food quality high? We need to make sure that we're trying to prioritize whole foods. We want high protein, we want high fiber, and we want to try and keep regular meal times as much as we possibly can. Now, regular meal times does not have to be every 3 or 4 hours. Regular meal times could be every 6 hours. Regular meal times could be eating 2 times per day on an intermittent fasting approach. Sure, cool, whatever works for you. I don't care as long as it actually works. Now, when we look at priorities in terms of the foods that we need to be looking at, it's like, okay, if you're busy, meal prep is your best friend. Okay, if you're in the same place all the time, but you're just very, very busy, chances are you have a day of the week whereby you have an hour spare, whereby you can just air fry a shit ton of potatoes. You can chuck a bunch of chicken in the oven or slow cook it or something like that. And you can cook up some rice, you can cook up some veggies, and you can just whack these in some meal prep containers. And you now have in your fridge 3 or 4 days worth of food stocked and ready to go. And we want to look at what's the easiest shit to make, man. Like if you're busy and you're like really, really, really cooked, like your schedule is fucked, you're probably not going to care too much about taste because you're just trying to get food in for efficiency anyway. So you're just looking at what allows you to hit your macronutrient goals the best, what allows you to get as much whole foods in as possible and keep yourself healthy the best, and what allows you to actually eat regularly the best. Okay, so yeah, it's boring as fuck, but getting like chicken and rice and mixing, like making the rice in like a slow cooker thing with some like chicken stock and some beans or some like peppers and some broccoli and stuff in there and mixing all that up and then having some chicken on top with some sauce. It's boring as shit, but it works. Okay. And at the end of the day, if you're really, really busy, you're really, really strapped for time, you just want what works. The other thing you can do is just get really, really good at tracking calories, and you can avoid places that are going to be so. Take out places, for example, in like London, right? Do not go to Five Guys if you're dieting. Do not do it. Okay? That is not a good idea. But if you go to Subway, all the calories and macros are listed for you. You can build your sandwich from scratch and you can essentially make a meal that's going to work for you. Subway wraps are fantastic. They're amazing for that kind of thing. And you want to look at, okay, well, where can I go to get the most convenient option that's still going to be ideal for my goals? And if you're somebody who's prepped 2 meals for the day and then you go to Subway for lunch, holy shit, now you've got a fantastic day of eating there, which is amazing. Wonderful, amazing. You want to look at convenience as it pertains to being goal conscious. Now, if you're traveling, the way that I always look at this is I'm kind of like, all right, well, I need to make sure that I'm either getting an Airbnb that has a fridge and a kitchen area. If I'm going to be situated somewhere for a decent amount of time, like over a week, then I want to be able to prepare my own food when I get there. If I'm in hotel rooms and I don't have the ability to prepare my own food, hotels generally have at least a mini fridge, and some of them will have microwaves, which is awesome. Okay, if they don't have a microwave and all you have is a mini fridge, I want you to go to the supermarket and I want you to focus on high protein snacks. So I want you to look for 0% fat Greek yogurt. I want you to look for beef jerky. I want you to look for ready to drink protein shakes, or get a protein supplement, a shaker, and you can mix it with water or milk, whatever the fuck you want. Get some fruit. Okay, go and get a shit ton of fruit. We love fruit. Mixing Greek yogurt with fruit, and then something that you like on top, like breaking up a couple of squares of Cadbury Dairy Milk or a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup or something like that, and mixing it into this big like dessert bowl. Holy shit, amazing. It's so good. Really filling, really satiating, and you're going to get a decent amount of protein from the yogurt. Fantastic. And then on top of that, you want to look at, okay, well, if you're traveling for pleasure, chances are you're going to be walking around a lot. So that's cool. Set yourself a step target for the day. It could be 8,000 steps. It could be 10,000 steps. I don't give a shit. Just set a step target. Make it higher than 2,000 steps. But set yourself a decently high step target so that you are consistently having something to aim for to walk around. Because it's not about I need to walk 10 miles a day. It's about, all right, well, we're going in the morning to this place for brunch. It's a 15-minute walk. I shouldn't Uber that. I might as well just get up 10 minutes earlier and I'm going to walk 15 minutes. Because the time I then walk to the next place after that to sightsee, which is also 15 minutes away, I've now walked 30 minutes and I've maybe done 3,000 or 4,000 steps already. And then when we walk around the sightseeing place, oh my God, we did another 3,000 steps. Fantastic. And then it just adds up day by day by day. And then you get in this habit of walking places where you can, and again, this is going to be easier for men and it's going to be easier in the daytime. I completely understand if you're a female who does not want to walk at night in crowded cities and all that sort of stuff. That's okay. Get the steps in when and where you can. It might just be a slightly lower step count. That's okay. And then with your main meals, I say to my clients, I got a client who's going to the States in literally 2 days. I said to him, big breakfast, big dinner, carry a high protein snack in between. Best way to think about it. Okay. Because realistically, if you're traveling for fun, big breakfast, always going to be fun. You might be at the hotel buffet or whatever. Again, there you can prioritize higher protein. You can get the deli meats and all that sort of stuff. You can have that with your little mini croissant, whatever it is you want. And then dinner is always going to generally be the more social meal, right? When you're traveling, you're going to go out and try somewhere for dinner, a restaurant reservation on the canals in Paris or somewhere cool in New York, some underground bar place. Amazing. Go and fucking enjoy that. That's awesome. But in between that, keep it sensible. Keep it sensible. Yeah, and those are just kind of I could ramble about this all day because there's so many different things, but realistically it's kind of make sure that you're not overdoing it at your main meals by just going crazy and being oh, I can do this all the time. Make sure you're as prepared as you can be. Locate the supermarkets, locate the local 24/7 stores, locate where it is that you can get goal conscious options should you need them, and just try to be as active as possible when you're traveling. Realistically, if you're traveling for fun, you're on holiday, accept the fact you're going to gain a couple of pounds. It's going to happen. It's fine. But, there are certain things you can do to still remain a little bit more goal conscious and not just be eating fried chicken and waffles for breakfast every single day, as cool as that would be. Let's be real.
Yeah, lots of good advice in there. And in today's episode in total, I think it's been really informative. So hopefully people have taken away a lot of information. Bringing it into close then. So I think I was doing this last time we spoke. A question for the listener, for them to go and ask someone to start a conversation about what we've spoken about today, just to get people talking and sort of discussing this sort of stuff. What question would you give the listener to take away?
I think one of the most enjoyable questions that I like asking clients that kind of comes onto nutrition is, if you could fit any food into your nutrition plan, regardless of what it was, it can be any food you want, regardless of the goal that you're aiming for right now, whether it's fat loss, whether it's to maintain and perform, whether it's to build muscle, whatever. If you could fit one food into any single day, what would it be? And then what I really like here is that you have this conversation with someone, you both say your food, what would yours be, bro?
Pizza, I suppose. I like pizza.
Cool.
Let's go
I
with
love
that.
pizza as well, man. I love pizza. Mine would actually be sushi. I fucking love sushi.
Okay.
So what I would then say is like, okay, cool. Now you go away and you figure out a way that you could make that fit. So yours is pizza, mine is sushi. We go away, we spend the next 7 days, we think about how could you make a pizza for a dieting phase? If you've got lower calories, what could you do? And you might come back and be like, all right, sweet. So I subbed out the base for a wrap, and then I used this lower calorie sauce. I used low fat mozzarella, and I put chicken and stuff on top. Kind of not quite the same as a deep dish Chicago style pizza, but it works. And then I know whenever I was building, I'd go ham on that shit. So I like those kind of conversations because it gets people kind of encouraging, like, yeah, you can still eat that food. You just have to tweak it to whatever your kind of nutritional goals are at the time.
Yeah, a good way to remind people that they can still fit something that they enjoy, lots that they enjoy in. It's just how they do it and being mindful of it. Jack, it's been wonderful. Thank you for coming on again. And it's been awesome to see you've continued to grow. Obviously, last time we spoke, I think you just passed 100,000. I think you're now like 160 or something. So people are obviously resonating with what you're doing. I think it's fantastic. So keep it up. And yeah, we'll see where it goes. And where can people find you if they want to sort of keep up to date with what you're doing?
Just Jack Hallows Fitness on Instagram. You'll find all the other links. Thank you so much for having me, bro. Continued success.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll link it all below so people can just go down and click. For the listener, if you have enjoyed this episode, please do share it with someone that you think will find value from it. If you've not already, just click follow wherever you're listening and rate the show as well. That really helps us reach new people and the show to be shown to them. And you can also follow on Instagram at Lonely Chapter Podcast. And lastly, from me, thank you for listening and stay curious.